I just found out I have to do a certificate. I don't wanna. I already know everything. I've been doing this for years. Do I have to do this?
Well, I think first you need to ask why. You know, is this so you can like get a promotion, or you can just say, hey, I know what I'm doing, you know? There's good things with those. If it's continued learning, it's showing that you know what you know, not just telling someone, I know what I'm doing. So
I guess you're right.
Yeah. Well,
Fine.
Let's learn a little bit more about that today.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah. We have Matthew Collis on while we talk about continued education, whether that's through learned experiences, certificates, or even conferences and other events that you can go to. Find your purpose.
Find your people.
And find your place.
Welcome back to the Principal Choice Podcast. Today we have Matt Collis with us as we discuss the importance of continuing education. Thank you, Matt, for joining us today. And we're talking about the benefits of continuing education and what that really means. So can you tell me a time where you felt like you benefited from continuing your education?
Sure. So thanks for having me, by the way. Most recently, very recent education was around security certification that we needed to get in order to be able to secure our platforms properly for some of the services that we provide. And so I think without doing that kind of certification, it's very hard to have a broad understanding of what kind of security requirements are needed in an organization like ours. So that was one. That was kind of personal to me. I wanted to get that to help round out my knowledge of the security environment, but also important as a business, the kind of business we do with our customers. Quite often they'll want to see that we have those kind of expertise on our team. So yeah, kind of a double benefit to doing that.
That makes sense. You mentioned certifications, and I know that's one that a lot of people turn to. There's various of them. I know you can get like certified in like Microsoft and Excel and all these things. But I know at least for me, maybe I'm speaking a little ignorantly here, but those certifications are sometimes just like a title to get thrown onto something. Not all of them, but sometimes they are. And I feel like there's a real benefit to that continued learning, not just for a certificate, but for actual gained learning from gained experience. What would be a time that you had a lot of continuous learning at a big time, whether it be business, personally, that didn't fall within like a certificate or with a degree, anything like that?
Yeah, probably the one I just mentioned with because there were so many practical applications, and it was just very important to our actual business that I understand those things. But I totally relate to what you mean. I mean, I've done plenty of those certifications where, sometimes the industry is going a certain way and you need to show to prospective employers that you know this stuff. And usually one of the only ways to do that is to have a certification that says you know this stuff. But to your point, there's a huge difference between actually getting that piece of paper and actually knowing that stuff inside out.
For sure.
And so, I've worked with people who've had, 9, 10 Microsoft certifications. And then when you get into the nitty gritty, they don't really understand how any of that stuff they learn applies to the business need. And so, it's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like double-edged sword there, right? The certificate is nice because it does prove that you were learning this and that you are an expert in this knowledge, but it's the practical application of it that always seems to be an issue. That kind of leads me a little bit to kind of the other side, the non-conventional side of learning and continuing that education, those kind of sit downs, those side by sides, those experiences that you just have to work with somebody to really understand. What do you feel is the best way to kind of integrate that kind of learning into like continuing your education?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in the IT industry like I am, you have to do that on a daily basis. Like you couldn't get by in our industry by just doing certs or certifications and then it's assuming you know everything from them
bye.
and picking up
You're good.
nothing along the way. We have stuff come up all the time. Just last week, I had to do something with one of our websites, and I had to quickly relearn JavaScript in a couple hours just to be able to, facilitate the business need. So that's very like on-the-fly learning that I think most people, at least in the IT industry, but probably other industries as well, are doing every day. And I learn more that way, honestly. Like the certifications are one thing. I think the way I kind of look at it is if you've got a certification in something, it's proven to me that you're capable of learning the subject. And so then when you come and, if it's employing someone to come work for us, you understand that, okay, they got that cert, they're definitely capable. Now we can teach them what they actually need to know to provide business value, knowing that because they got the certification, they're probably going to be able to do that. So
I like that way of looking at it a lot. Because it does mean something. We don't want to just throw it out and be like, oh, these don't mean anything, because they do. But every company, every person, every group has a different way of doing things. Building a website, taking phone calls for work, whatever it might be, there's a different way that it works for everyone. But the most important thing is this person malleable? Do they understand that things are going to be different? It's not going to be stuck in this very certain way of this is how we do it, or this is how the certification taught me. What would be some ways that you would push someone, or what direction you would kind of push someone in to further their journey with continuous education, whether it be in their own field now or in a different field that they want to move into at a later time?
How to kind of encourage someone?
Yeah, kind of encourage someone. What resources even would you maybe give somebody to? I know it's a little general, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about encourage. I think people either want to get certified or they don't.
That's fair.
And so, necessarily pushing someone to have a formal certification in something, I think it works for some people and it doesn't for others. I have members on my team and I recommend that they get certified to round out their knowledge. And, part of the way we encourage people is helping recommend good courses, helping recommend certifications, not just that would be good in our company, but will be good for their future. But I think at the end of the day, some people don't want to do those extracurricular, it takes work outside of hours. People have busy lives. It's hard to invest that time. That is one way we would encourage people by giving them dedicated time during their workday, right, to go and study for these things. I think that's kind of tricky to convince someone if they actually don't want to get a certification.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's knowing your audience in a way.
And some people don't test very well. So they might be really good at learning material and understanding, but when they go to a test, they panic, they worry, they second guess themselves. And so it can be really hard, depending on the type of person you are.
Cough, cough. I feel that. Cough, cough.
Yep.
I can get the material, but as soon as the test happens, I'm like, all right, this is do or die. You're never going to make it if you fail this. And it's a complete mental block. So it is hard to get past that. But knowing, people in my corner, that helps a little bit more, and just taking a moment. But that's a whole nother ball game on that. I guess another question here for you is, I feel like some of this kind of goes hand in hand, because you want to help develop people on your team so that they are well-rounded and you want them to grow, but it doesn't always have to be in the direct department that you're working in. Sometimes it's in a professional sense. How do you try and show that importance of not only your professional development in the department you're working in, or like IT, or if you do work in a call center or management, anything like that, compared to, the professional development of, being a better leader, how to make sure you're uplifting your team, knowing that you're part of a team, kind of a balance there?
Yeah. I think it depends what direction people want to go in. And I think you always have to ask that question first. You can't push a certain kind of learning onto someone, like, we're going to teach you about being a manager, if they don't really have that desire. And sometimes people don't really understand what they even want to learn. Like, they don't know for themselves that maybe they've never been a manager. And so they think that sounds good. Oh, maybe I can boss people around, or I don't have to do as much work or something. They have this imagination of what being a manager means. But sometimes with experience, if you've been in that position, you know what that kind of job entails. And so I think you have to talk to them and explain, if you learn this stuff, this is the kind of thing you'll be doing. You may not, that may not align with what you really wanted to be doing or what you thought you'd be learning. So I think you have to, for sure, try and help them to understand what it really is where they actually want to go before you can help them understand exactly what they should learn,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think a lot of people, and probably even including ourselves sometimes, even if it's not now, but it was at a previous point, we saw that next position and we didn't really look at what it entailed. We saw a bigger paycheck. We saw a little bit more responsibility. We saw, a little bit more freedom in what we can do instead of what am I actually doing? Am I going to enjoy that? I think that's a very valid thing to work on with your team members. If they want the position that you're in, okay, let me show you a little bit of what I do. Does this still interest you? If not, okay, let's look down a different avenue. All of those kinds of things, because those are really the most important. The last thing we want to do is get someone to a position they think they want to be, but not actually tell them about the position or place they're at or going to be at, and then all of a sudden it crumbles and falls.
Yep.
What are some of the questions that you ask if there's someone coming to you saying they want, to be promoted or to learn a little bit more in this subject before you really dive into it with them, give them those resources to make sure they understand what's going into it?
You just ask the why is the main thing that comes to mind, right? We talk about that a lot, I think, here. And if you can have them in their own words describe the reason they want to learn that, you may be able to analyze, does your why align with where that's going to take you? And I think that's probably one of the most important things. And I really like your point about showing them a little bit about what you do. If they're saying, well, I would like your job, well, I'll show you what I do. Let's hop on a call for an hour or two. Let's go through some of the stuff I do. Is this what you're good at? Is this what you enjoy to do? And I think that's key, is enjoying doing what you do and enjoying what you learn. If you've ever done a training course because you've had to do one, and it's not something you enjoy, it's so much harder to succeed. Whereas if it's something you actually enjoy, you absorb that information a lot more easily. Yeah. So I think, that's probably critical to success with higher education.
I agree on that. Yeah. There's always those courses where you're just like, next. 100%. I just have to do it. So
100%. I always say high school was terrible because it was a curriculum that was forced upon me, but I excelled in college because I actually got to focus on things that interested me while still doing the requirements that you needed. But it was really finding that learning style and what I was interested in that changed everything. So it really does say a lot on that. And I think it also says a lot on how people learn. I am a doer. I like to see what's going on. I like to ask questions. I like to be hands-on and do this with somebody compared to just reading instructions and hoping for the best on that. I'm terrible at that because then I second guess everything, making sure I'm comprehending it correctly. I'm not making anything up there. It can be a lot. So I love, asking those open-ended questions and in that why and seeing what drives them. And that kind of really shows you where you can kind of continue to grow. What other resources do you kind of, what am I trying to say here? What other resources do you use for people who are wanting to continue their education? Do you give them extra books? Do you give them certain videos to kind of look over? What are some kind of ways that you kind of help drive that maybe before they take the final leap to do a certification or anything like that?
Yeah, probably the first thing is time. That's the main kind of commodity that we need to be able to learn. So give them that time. And then some people might work well with videos. Some people might work well with instructor-based training, which we've provided. My team specifically will go to technology conferences, which are a really good way. It covers the time thing because you're outside of the office for a period of time, purely focused on learning that subject. And so that's a really powerful thing. We'll try and do online conferences and fit in sessions, but in between things in our workday. But work always comes in. Someone has an emergency. you can't join the conference. And so a lot of those get missed, if I'm honest. But yeah, going somewhere, actually being in that moment and really focusing, dedicated focus on that topic is what I found works really well.
Yeah, that makes sense a lot too. And especially with those conferences, you're around other people that you can also learn from. It's not, I mean, yes, you have the remote conference, but it's just, there's a lack of humanity in those, of the tangible, oh, I can go over here and talk to this instructor, or go over here and talk to this person and ask them what they know about something and learn from them a little bit more hands-on. I like that a lot. Getting them out, doing something if they're able to. Having those conversations. I think that's where a lot of people, at least me, also learns the most is
outside
something like this.
Conversations and perspectives
Exactly.
help ignite a light bulb.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Now, one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, because I think at least what I would usually go to, and other people probably the same, when I hear the word continuous education or education in general, I'm thinking like school, like go to college, go do this, go do that. I know we've talked about certificates, we've talked about conferences, we've talked about things like that. But what are some things, and even if this is in your personal history, where you get this degree or you're challenged to get a degree, what are some things that anyone can take as a positive from those extra learning experiences, even if they're not in your field?
So you're talking about directly from higher
like
education authorities,
education.
Like college, university, those kind of things?
Yeah.
It depends what you kind of envision yourself doing. I think when you're older, if you go to college to study, to be a vet or a doctor or a lawyer, those things are obviously highly relevant and necessary to get further in your field or get anywhere in your field, actually. But I myself have degrees that I used none of the information I learned from my degrees. I have a math degree and an astrophysics degree, and I couldn't tell you much about either of those things today. But I think in almost any degree program, you're learning at a very high level. And so you're showing and developing that capability to be able to learn at that level. And so I think you can take that into almost any job or any career, just having worked on difficult things and building those problem-solving skills. You're building a lot of skills at that age because you probably just left home, so you're handling all that kind of stuff as well, right? You're handling rent and your actual life. So so I think there's a lot going on at that kind of age when you're doing those higher education things. But I think even if your career is different to what you studied, it's still relevant. It still sets you up, especially those first 3-4 years of your career. Now, I'd say as you get a little older, I'm not going to say exactly how old I am, but if I was going to do a degree now, I don't think that would be so relevant, to be honest, unless it was very, like I wanted to change and be a doctor or a vet. Probably too late now, but that would be relevant. But otherwise, I think the experiences we learn in the workplace past a certain age are more relevant, more valuable.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think what I pull from that as well is whether you went to a higher learning institution, college, community college, whatever it is, or you didn't, a lot of people think, oh, well, I wasted my time getting this degree. But did you really? Because you learned all of these things. Like you're saying, you can't be like, oh, I know this exactly from my degree with math and blah, 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 blah. But you can say these are different problem-solving techniques I learned.
Learning discipline.
Exactly, learning discipline. So it takes away that waste from that time. But also from the other side, if you didn't, well, maybe it makes you feel a little better because you also learned these things because immediately you went to work. You learned the exact same things. It kind of sets that ground level. It's just a different path to the same place.
Absolutely.
You see that in the industry right now. More and more job postings, adverts for people who apply to jobs are reducing that requirement for having a bachelor's degree or master's degree. I mean, you still see it a lot, but compared to 10 years ago, you'll see or equivalent experience a lot more on jobs. So, and that's kind of playing into that, right? That people are starting to value this work experience may well have provided as much value as this 3-year degree. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. I think one of the tricky things too, especially in the area in which you work, technology, it's ever changing and it's changing quickly. And that goes for a lot of different types of jobs, works, businesses. Everything's constantly changing and pivoting. How, or I guess it's not really a how, what do you feel is the best way to kind of continue on where you feel like you're still ahead of the game without having to constantly wait until everything's all settled and then maybe get a certificate or anything of that nature? How do you kind of navigate those new waters when something is quickly and rapidly changing?
Yeah, it's so difficult in technology now. If you look at how much change there was from, say, the year 2000 to 2010, you could have learned something in the year 2000 and still be applying it in 2010. But like that tenure of change is these days a year or two of change. And so you're constantly having to relearn stuff. And to stay at the cutting edge, it's very difficult. Unless you're in an organization that embraces that modern technology, a lot of companies are still using 10-year-old technology. And so it's actually quite hard to even go off and learn that stuff if the organization you work with isn't using that new stuff. It's also changed the way we learn in the IT field because, 10, 15 years ago, we had to learn all these facts about specific software that was in play today. That's almost obsolete now because software is changing so rapidly. And so now you kind of have to approach your learning a little differently, where you're learning a high-level overview, kind of the big picture of what's going on. But don't learn, specifically click this button, then do this, because it's all going to be gone in 2 years.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is search engines, AI, all this new stuff, right? Well, search engines aren't really new, but you can Google things like that. Like that knowledge to me is kind of wasteful to learn how to exactly do a specific process because you can type into Google search or your AI chatbot or whatever you have, and it'll just tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
It's more, you need to understand the big picture. How does this big piece fit in with this big piece? All the little things in between that connect everything, you can just search these days.
Yeah.
So
I found that as a funny thing. Like when I was taking like accounting in college, it was always told to us, you need to learn all of these little tiny things now, but you're never going to use them later. And I'm like, why are we using them then? Like, can I just Google it? And they're like, yeah, that's what you'll do later. And I'm like, so then why are you teaching me?
Yep.
Why can't I just use the software? And they're like, well, because you need to know. And I'm like, all right.
But I bet the concepts stuck with you. So some of those concepts of why am I doing these things? Those are the things that persist, right?
Instead of my why being, well, I'll just Google it. Like it was, no, it's because it's the big picture. That's what you actually gain from it. So
security is a great example. With technology, a lot of the concepts we were doing 20 years ago are still hold true today. The tech looks entirely different.
Yeah.
You wouldn't recognize it, but the concepts are all still there.
I was like, I still recognize some names like, the firewall and malware and all of that. Like I still recognize that from, late 90s cough, maybe earlier. And it's still very much the same way you protect, but it's completely changed on how and what they're targeting and what they're like the depth of which they're kind of going at it for that security purpose as well. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I love that too. The big picture. It's easier, more digestible, and it's not quite as daunting going forward when you're wanting to learn. You're not like, I have to learn every little minuscule detail. It's like, no, get the big picture, understand the big picture, and everything else will kind of fall into place.
100%.
That's definitely true. Just ironically, you often can't understand the big picture until you've learned all those little pieces inside. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 there. But yeah.
Yeah, keeping us on our toes.
It is. Well, thank you, Matthew, for jumping on to talk to us about that continued education, continued learning, and the important parts of it. It's not always about a certificate. Yes, those are great. Those show that you can learn something. It's not always about a degree. It's more about how you traverse the unknown, the questions you're asking, the big picture that you're looking at, and making sure that you're understanding it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Milena, what did you learn?
I learned a lot. I learned that certificates are beneficial to kind of show that you do know what you're doing and that you are well versed. And it's important to also go to conferences and get out of the get out of the office to learn as well and get other people's perspectives. So it was a lot. It was good. It's continuing my education, if you will.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to get out of your comfort zone to continue that education. There are show notes below our episode if you'd like any other resources. And until next time on the Principal Choice Podcast, find your purpose. Hey, continued education.
Continue education. I'll try again.
Yeah. Find your purpose, find your people, find your place.